The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Get up to $1,000 deposit match when you sign up at Underdog Fantasy with the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday night, June 19th, around 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Our host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the quarterfinal matches in Halle and in London. So we're going to break down all of those matches taking place on Friday. Before we get into the actual breakdown of the quarterfinals, though, a brief recap of what happened last episode and what happened in the lock and dog picks. So for the actual lock and dog, a decent episode for us. Ended up losing the lock, but we did win the dog. For the lock, ended up having a parlay. As we had Shelton money line, parlayed with Etcheverry money line at minus 122. Etcheverry dominated as he was able to beat Martinez comfortably. Shelton, though, couldn't beat Rinderknech. Couldn't even win a set. He lost in two tie breaks, really bad shot selection. It just felt like Shelton didn't bring his A game, simply put, and he ended up losing in straight sets. First match that Shelton had as a member of the top 10. And he loses in straight sets to Rinderknech. So not ideal there. Shelton's a massive favorite, didn't get the job done. Picked up a loss there for the lock. For the dog, though, nice win as Wade McDonald money line at plus 102. Never in doubt, dominated against Monfils as he won in straight sets. So once again, ended up splitting the lock and the dog. Shelton was a massive favorite, and he no-showed the match. So unfortunate, but either way, picked up a split. Look for a sweep here for the quarterfinal matches on Friday. Before we get into the actual recap of the matches on Thursday, a reminder that you help support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, you can also find the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So if you want to support the show, don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, and don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple if you want to listen to the podcast in audio format only. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs. High quality, very affordable. Recommend getting yourself something there. So once again, check out the shirts, these sweatshirts, mugs, etc. You name it, check out all the merchandise on the merch store. Plus, a reminder, if you're interested in college football, the College Experience guys are already starting their college football team previews, which are back on the College Experience. So Kobe and Moneyline Mac preview every single FBS college team. You don't want to miss out, so check out the, once again, team previews there for the upcoming college football season. Anyway, moving on to the recap of the matches on Thursday. Could have done Wednesday too, but decided to just do Thursday because I didn't want to spend too much time getting into the recap section. So, starting off with the matches that took place in London, you saw Leheshka, who destroyed Diallo. Diallo we saw win a title. Once again last week, did win his first match against Harris. He had nothing left in the tank, and Leheshka beat him comfortably. Saw Fernley beat Moutet. Moutet pulled off an upset against Fritz in the first match, and then ended up kind of running out of gas as Fernley beat him in 3. Alcaraz had an absolute war against Munar. He was actually down a break in the third set, came back, and eventually did win 7-5 in the third, so not easy by Alcaraz. Munar played very well. Match took about 3 hours and 20 minutes, give or take. But Alcaraz got the job done as he survived a serious upset and was able to advance into the quarters. And Rinderknech beat Opelka again, as Opelka basically quit in the breaker. He was down 6-0, and Rinderknech coasted. So either way, nice job by him to make it into the quarters. But once again, not too much drama in London. The main drama, of course, was Alcaraz, who was down a break in the third set to Munar, came back and did win. So nothing too shocking in terms of upsets. Opelka was a favorite against Rinderknech, but nothing too massive. So once again, not too much drama, but Alcaraz having a random war against Munar on grass was not expected, but Alcaraz did end up winning. As for Halle, though, you had a bunch of matches taking place. You saw Kashanov beat Felix in 3. Saw Kaboli outlast Shapo in a third set breaker. You saw Etcheverry beat Rublev, a massive choke job by both guys over the course of the match. Etcheverry actually had a match point in the second set. On top of that, he also ended up having an opportunity to serve it out for the win, as he was serving in, he was actually up 5-2 in the second set. So Etcheverry almost won in straight sets. Then he choked it. He had a match point on Rublev's serve after he was serving for the match and blew it, and then eventually lost the breaker. So you figure, okay, Etcheverry's probably going to fall apart because he choked in the second set. Rublev figured it out, and we'd probably end up seeing Rublev get a break at some point. Didn't happen. Etcheverry had a couple of breakpoint chances, including one in the 4-4 game. Did not convert, and then Rublev was up 6-4 in the tiebreak. And it looked like it was over because Rublev, once again, was basically down and out. He was down 5-2 in the second set. He fought off a match point. ended up winning the breaker, fought off a couple of breakpoint chances, and you figure Etcheverry probably blew his opportunity, and he's going to lose. Then Rublev completely imploded and completely choked away the entire match. So 6-4, loses the point. I think it was a good first serve by Etcheverry. I don't believe it was anything substantial. Then Rublev completely unraveled. Serving for it, double fault. Next point, wide open shot to an open court. Bricks it into the net. And then down match point, he hits a slam into the net. He lost 4 straight points to lose the match. An absolute choke job of epic proportions by Rublev. And he once again ended up blowing an opportunity to have a nice win. I mean, Etcheverry is not exactly known as being a great grass player, but that was a massive choke job for a guy that is top 10 in the world, fringe top 10 in the world. I think Rublev's out of the top 10 now, but he was, of course, in there. He's now top 15. You get my point. It's a match as a minus 400. You have to win that match, especially up 6-4 in the breaker while serving for the match. You can't blow 3 separate points courtesy of unforced errors with a double fault, a missed wide open court forehand, and a slam into the net. Disastrous ending for Rublev. Massive choke job there. Then you end up seeing Makic beat Morozin in a very easy straight set win. In fact, the only straight set match of the entire day for Halle. You saw Zverev beat Sonego in a final set breaker, so he got the job done there. So nice job by Zverev. It wasn't easy. Lost the first set. Came back and did eventually win in 3. But either way, point is that set up the main shocker of the actual card. Rublev losing was an absolute shock, but we did find an even bigger shock, which was once again Zverev surviving in 3. And you figure, okay, probably all the drama's done. You had 3 separate final set breakers. What else could possibly happen? And then Sinner won the first set against Bublik, and you figure, okay, Bublik's probably going to lose. We know Bublik's a great player on grass. The court speed here does benefit him. But you figure Sinner, who has not lost to anybody besides Alcaraz in basically a year, is just going to coast and win. And Sinner was around minus 1,000 on the money line. I don't know what he was alive in the match. And he lost. Bublik came back and beat Sinner in 3 sets, which was really, once again, the main shock of the entire tournament, as Sinner was up a set, had a couple of chances there in the second set as well, and he just couldn't convert. He actually had 3 breakpoint chances in the first game of the second set. He also had a breakpoint chance in the third game of the second set. Then Bublik finally broke in the 6th game, held out, and then Sinner had a couple chances again in the third set. Couldn't convert, then Bublik broke again, and Bublik won. So that was an absolute shock. Sinner was once again upset by a guy who I think we all knew had the talent to potentially pull off an upset like this, but we thought mentally Bublik wouldn't have the consistency to fully deal with the, I'd say, massive headache that Sinner is with the consistency, with the firepower. However, we know that the court speeds here in Halle help Bublik out because the serve is great. He was hitting every spot he needed to, and he was able to shorten the points. But Sinner losing was not on anybody's tennis card for today, and it happened as Bublik pulled it off. So either way, nice job by Bublik pulling off the upset, the biggest upset of, you could argue, the season, honestly. I mean, Sinner had not lost to anybody besides Alcaraz in a long, long time, and Bublik pulled it off. So nice job by him getting revenge from the French Open defeat. He was able to get some revenge in his familiar environment on grass, and we'll see how Bublik does moving forward. But Sinner losing was an absolute shock. So that was the main shocker of the entire day. And once again, the main drama in London was Alcaraz being pushed to the brink, but he survived, so it wasn't as big of a deal in hindsight. But Sinner and Rublev losing as massive favorites was definitely a shock. And the fact that both guys were, I'd say, that close to pulling it off and then still losing was definitely a main surprise. But look, I'm not going to say Sinner choked or anything. I thought Bublik played that well. I thought Bublik actually had some really good responses to Sinner's serve. I thought he did a good job sprinkling the drop shots, hitting his spots, and I thought Sinner played fine. I thought Bublik played out of his mind. The Rublev loss, in terms of actual content watching it, was definitely more self-inflicted. Rublev completely punted that match, and that was embarrassing. Sinner losing was a shock, but I thought Bublik earned it. I'll put it that way. Etcheverry had a bunch of chances, blew a bunch of chances, and then Rublev let him off the hook. But either way, pretty crazy slate for Thursday. Time to move on to the matches for Friday, taking place in Halle and in London. And before we get into the actual breakdown of the matches for the quarters, A reminder, they're brought to you by Circa, because they're still hosting the Ultimate Fanciful giveaway and contest, because they are giving away a great 12-person league to draft in Vegas and be trading VIPs for the stay. A little more ride from the airport, 5K tab, stadium, swim, hotel stay for you and your 11 league mates. And a reminder, unrelated, you can always get 15% off everything from the Circa properties with the promo code SGP15. Enter the Ultimate Fanciful contest for free. Become the sports game by sponsor Circa to enter the free contest. We're also brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie's plays for every sport. They have the NBA playoffs. They have the baseball cards. They have UFC. They have golf. You name it. They're available on locations as well. Use crypto for all payouts. Use a deposit. Sign up for an account. Use the code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match up to 1K. Terms and conditions by MyBookie.ag. Promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened on Thursday. Time to move on to the matches taking place on Friday. Starting off with Halle. For this one, first match on the card is going to be between Mickelson and Medvedev. So looking at the matchup here, Medvedev's a favorite, about minus 250. Mickelson is plus 200 or so. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Medvedev. You have plus 3.5 for Mickelson, and the over-under is set at 23.5. Set spread, you have Medvedev in straight sets at plus 128. Mickelson to win 8 sets minus 165. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. Faced off one time last year. This year, it was a fake meeting in Indian Wells. Mickelson played 2 games and said, "I'm out of here," and he left. So really no head-to-head history to go by. Medvedev, though, has been good, has not dropped a set yet, ended up beating Halle in straight sets and beat Altmaier in straight sets. For Mickelson, he's been good too. Beat Cerundolo in 3 and then beat Tsitsipas in straight sets. Bizarre ending to that second set. Mickelson was serving for the match, got broken, and then you saw Tsitsipas get broke. I actually got to pull up the exact order of operations here. So Tsitsipas was serving in the 4-5 game, fought off a match point, and ended up blowing it. So either way, he fought off the match point and blew it. So Tsitsipas ended up holding serve, fighting off the match point to make it 5-4. Then you saw Mickelson trying to serve it out in the 5-4 game. He choked it, and he got broken. Tsitsipas ended up forcing a 5-5. Classic Tsitsipas fashion, he ended up getting broken immediately the game after, had a break point in the 6-5 game, and then eventually did not convert. Mickelson did win in straight sets. So classic Tsitsipas choke job where he made it interesting for a little bit and then immediately punted it again. So Tsitsipas still being a head case. Mickelson, though, got the job done in straight sets. But the point is, for this matchup, it's kind of interesting because we do know that the court speeds here really limit the amount of long rallies between players. And Mickelson loves to rally for a long period of time. So does Medvedev. So you might see a pretty weird matchup here where both guys want to rally, but the courts actually might not allow them to rally that often because of how fast the courts play. Now, Mickelson's been serving quite well in the event so far, but I think Medvedev's better than him, and I do think that if we're looking at a battle of ralliers, I think Medvedev's the better rallier, and I think he's the better server. Mickelson's serve, I've mentioned many times before, despite being a pretty tall guy, really not as good of a server as he should be. Medvedev's serve, when it's on, is solid. Second serve's not great. First serve, though, can be very dangerous. I think Medvedev wins. I think that he's a better player than Mickelson. I'm not going to really overreact to beating Tsitsipas, who's been underwhelming since winning that title in Dubai. I'm going to go with Medvedev in straight sets. I think that there might be a breaker in here, might be close, but I do think that plus 128 is a good value play for the better player in this one. I don't trust Medvedev entirely, but Mickelson has not really done anything in his entire pro career in terms of deep runs. He made a deep run at Winston-Salem last year, ended up losing. He's never won a title before on the ATP level. I just think at the end of the day, you're looking at a spot where Medvedev's the better player, and I think it's a good price. Give me Medvedev, who's looked great so far here in the event, not dropping a single set. I'll take him minus 1.5 sets at plus 28 as the main thought for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Cobolli against Zverev. Now, for this one, Zverev's a massive favorite in his home country, as he's minus about 750. You have Cobolli at around 530. For the spread, you have minus 4.5 for Zverev. You have plus 4.5 for Cobolli. The over-unders at 21.5. For the set spread, you have Zverev in straight sets at a minus 200. Cobolli to win 8 sets plus 153. The over 2.5 sets is plus 206. So the head-to-head history, they faced off actually a couple weeks ago in the French Open, and Zverev did win in straight sets. There was a breaker in there, but it was pretty lopsided. It was 6-2, 7-6, 6-1. Now, Cobolli's had a couple of marathons, outlasted Shapo in a final set breaker, and outlasted Fonseca in a final set breaker. For Zverev, though, he had one easy match and one war, beat Giron 6-2, 6-1, and came back from a set down against another Italian in Sonego with a final set breaker. First glance, I find the total very low at 21.5. Said before, the court speeds in Halle do promote a ton of tie breaks, and I do think that even though Gaboli's serve is not, I'd say, lethal, it's good enough to potentially hold for maybe an entire set if he ends up finding the rhythm on his forehand. But I do think Zverev, after going 3 sets against Sonego, is a favorite that's a bit too big in this one. I think he'll win, but 21.5 games is really nothing on these courts in Halle. You get one breaker, which has been common in almost every match here, and you're in good shape because you even win with a 7-6, 6-3. So barring an extremely lopsided set, and even if you do get that, a 3-setter, you still win basically automatically. Total feels too short to me. I'll take the over in this one. Zverev probably wins if he blows out Gaboli. I would not be shocked. But based on the court speeds here and the tendency for breakers, I do think you're looking at a spot where 21.5 is too low. For example, we saw Mickelson serve well against Tsitsipas, not a great server. We saw Echeverry serve very well against Rublev. He's not really a great server. It feels like the average servers can actually hold their own on the courts here. So for that reason, I'll go with the over in this one. Give me one close set, one Zverev, 6-3 in there, maybe a 6-4, and you get there. Total feels too short, though, on the courts. Give me the over for this grass match for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have, looking at the actual schedule, quickly, you're looking at Bublik against Makic. So for this one, Bublik's a decent favorite. He's around minus 220. For Makic, you have plus 186. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Bublik, plus 2.5 for Makic. The over-under is at 23.5. Now, Bublik, we saw beat Sinner in 3 sets. We also saw him look sharp in the first match against pulling it up, facing off against Mueller as he won 6-4, 6-4. As for Makic, he won in 3 against De Jong, and he was able to beat Morozin comfortably 6-2, 6-3. So I understand why Bublik is a massive favorite at 220. You beat Sinner on grass. You've earned the, I'd say, respect of the markets to pull off almost the impossible and to be an unbeatable opponent. So the argument is Bublik is obviously worthy of being a favorite. The problem is twofold. One, should he be this big of a favorite? And 2, is Bublik in a great letdown spot where after beating Sinner, which was unexpected, he maybe, I don't want to say no shows the match, but there was a couple of either mental or physical lapses, and you might see every now and then a player pulls off a massive upset, and then the next match they no-show, and they lose, and you kind of wonder what happened. Maybe Bublik, after beating Sinner, kind of comes down emotionally and kind of lays an egg in this one. Do I think he's going to? I'll say no, but I do think 220 is too big. Bublik's a player in great form recently. We saw him make a good run to the quarters in the French Open. But I do think Bublik's a guy who's still volatile. Makic is a good server, a solid overall player. I like the over in this match. I think this total is also too low. Is that around 23.5? You can find 22.5 at minus 140 if you want to kind of gamble on the juice. But I think both guys can serve well enough to force at least one breaker. We know Bublik can break himself if the faulting's an issue. Makic, though, is a solid player. He plays well on fast courts. Saw him beat Alcaraz on hard court last year. People are going to automatically put Bublik in to the next round, expecting him to just win the title after beating Sinner. I'm not going to go that far. If Bublik won, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think Makic is more alive than people think, and I do think after beating Sinner in a pretty shocking upset, I feel like Bublik is a bit too chalky in this one, knowing what we know about his personality. Seems like he's finally engaged, and we'll see if he can keep it going in this one. But Makic will not make it easy. I don't see it being a lopsided matchup in favor of Bublik. It might go 3, might get a couple breakers in there, but I think Makic is once again a very solid and underrated player. He won a title earlier this year in Mexico. He's very good. He's ranked 23 in the world. I like the over in this one. Give me a close matchup, might come down to the wire, but I do think Bublik will end up sneaking out a win, maybe in 3 sets. But if Makic pulled off the upset, I would really be not that surprised compared to other people who are expecting Bublik to roll into the semis onward. I'm not going to go that far. Bublik played extremely well against Sinner yesterday, but do I think there's a potential letdown spot? There might be. So give me Makic for the value, but I think Bublik wins in 3. Give me the over as a main thought for that one. Moving on to the next matchup. You have a matchup between Echeverry and Khachanov. So Khachanov's a massive favorite. He's around minus 260. Echeverry's plus 210. For the spread, minus 3.5 for Khachanov at plus 118. For Echeverry, plus 3.5, minus 138. For the over-under, I see 23.5. It's 22.5. Over is minus 150 if you want to go for the Once again, shorter number at 22.5. Now, for the actual head-to-head between them, you have seen them face off one time before in Miami 2 years ago, and Khachanov did win in 3 sets. Now, Khachanov ended up winning in 3 against Felix yesterday, 1 against Bergs in straight sets the round prior, who was off the final appearance last week. So a good win there against Bergs, and Felix can be tricky on grass. So once again, a nice win for Khachanov. For Etcheverry, beat Martinez, who was a clay specialist in the first round easily, and then beat Rublev in a really weird match that he choked and got bailed out in at the same time. So I think Khachanov should win. Etcheverry looked really good, but after that type of marathon against Rublev, which took about 3 hours, I wonder how much he has left in the tank for this one. Do I think Khachanov should be 260? No. I think that's too big of a price. So I guess Etcheverry or pass, but I really don't feel great about anything in this matchup. Maybe a breaker in theory, but Khachanov is not exactly known for being a great grass player. I argue that it's his worst surface. He's still fine on it. Etcheverry's never shown any signs of skill on grass before, and then he beat Rublev. So I guess he might have found something. He's playing well in the event. He looked really good for the first, I'd say, 2.5 sets against Rublev or longer, and then kind of got bailed out there in the breaker. But I do think it's going to be a close matchup. I'll go Khachanov, but it's really not a play I'm interested in. Team total over, maybe. Just pick a competitive set and go from there. But it's a big price for Khachanov, a bit too big for me. I think the value is only on Etcheverry, but I don't really like the spot for him. If I'm going to criticize the spot for Bublik, who pulled off an upset, now he's playing again the day after, I got to mention it again for Etcheverry. It's not the same caliber win, but Rublev's a solid top 15 player. It's the biggest win Etcheverry's ever had on grass. I do think that it'll be a close matchup. Maybe go with the over 2.5 sets. Hope Khachanov punts a set and go from there. But I'll go with the over in this one. Give me Khachanov team total over as well for that one. Moving on to the next matchup. You have, looking at the London card, you have a matchup between Fernley and Leheshka. Now, Leheshka is minus 205. Fernley's plus 177. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Leheshka. You have plus 2.5 for Fernley. For the over-under, I see 22.5. Now, Leheshka's been coasting so far in the event. He has not dropped a set. He has not gotten broken. He has not faced a break point. He's been rolling. Beat Dimenauer handily, 6-4, 6-2, and beat Diallo, 6-4, 6-2. For Fernley, he had a marathon against Moutet, or I should say a 3-setter against Moutet, and he was able to beat Bolt 6-2, 6-4. Now, Leheshka, I think, is the better player. He is in great form. The serve is dangerous. Fernley, I think, is a solid player. He has the crowd behind him. But I'm looking at the overall skill gap here. It's noticeable. And I'll point out that Leheshka is a pretty decent price on the actual set spread. Minus 1.5 sets around plus 132. I like it. I think it's a good price. Fernley, I think, can lose this in straight sets. Moutet is okay on grass. Not amazing. And he was able to beat Fritz. Fritz, I thought, could have easily won the match, but he was, once again, being Fritz, and he kind of just punted it away with unforced errors. But I do think that Leheshka's serve is a serious problem for Fernley to deal with, and the fact that Leheshka is still a good all-around player, I think it'll look sharp here. Give me Leheshka to get the job done in straight sets at plus 132 as my favorite play for this one. Moving on to the next matchup. You have Draper against Nakashima. Now, Draper's minus 430. You have Nakashima at plus 337. For the spread, minus 3.5 for Draper, plus 3.5 for Nakashima. The over-under is at 22.5 games. For the set spread, you have Draper in straight sets at minus 135. You have Nakashima to win a set at plus 105. The over 2.5 sets is plus 167. Now, even though Draper was one of the favorites here in his home country, did not look great against Papiron. He was actually down a set, came back, then he actually fought off a couple of break points in the third set, and eventually found a way to, he fought off one break point actually, had a couple match points, didn't convert, and then survived the breaker. So it was definitely not easy, but he got the job done, as he was able to win in the final set breaker. So Draper's been fine so far in the event. He ended up beating Brooksby in the first round, who's not good on grass at all, because he has no firepower. For Nakashima, he's been good. Beat Evans in straight sets and beat Pericard in 3 sets. So the head-to-head history is interesting. Faced off on grass last year. Draper won in Stuttgart in straight sets. Faced off 2 times before that, though. They alternated multiple set wins. As you saw Draper win in 3 in Italy 2023, and you saw Nakashima win the next-gen finals in 4 sets 2022. So that wasn't like a real match, because that's the first of 4 in each set instead of first to 6. But Nakashima does have a win under his belt. However, with the court speeds here in London, a lot of it comes down to the first serve. If Nakashima hits his first serves, he'll be dangerous. His second serve, I think, can be had, and I think that Draper should find openings against Nakashima, but I do think Nakashima can actually force a breaker or two. I'll go with the team total over for Draper. Kind of a common theme here. I don't see him dominating against a Nakashima. I think it will be close. We saw Papiron showcase the firepower and keep Draper very off balance for a decent portion of the match. I think Nakashima can do that for at least a set. I don't mind the over 22.5 games. I think Nakashima's matches tend to go length anyway because he's a good server and a bad returner. I'll back that. Give me the over for this one. I think Draper wins. There's no value, though, at minus 430. I don't see any value on the straight sets win either. So give me Nakashima to keep it interesting. Don't mind the over for that matchup. Moving on to a matchup between Rune and Bautista Agut. For this one, you have Rune, who is a decent favorite, about minus 330. He's actually been bet down, minus 280 at the moment. I see Agut at around plus 230. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Rune. You have plus 3.5 for Agut. The over-under is at 22.5 games. Set spread, you have Rune minus 1.5 sets at plus 105. You have Agut plus 1.5 sets at minus 135. The over 2.5 sets is a plus 132. Now, for that dead history, it's been competitive. Rune, though, has won every meeting, faced off 3 times. Every meeting, though, was, once again, close. They faced off in the French Open this past year, and you saw Rune win in 4. That was about a month ago. Faced off in Montreal last year, Rune won in 3. Faced off in Basel 2022, and Rune won 7-6, 7-6. So you're looking at Agut, who does have a day off entering this match, which definitely is a good thing for him. Couple marathons. Beat Mensik in 3 sets, and beat Borges in 3 sets. Did drop the first set in both matches, so he has been a slow starter. For Rune, though, he looked good in the first match, beating O'Connell, who's been really bad on grass, and he had an interesting match against McDonald, where he got destroyed in the first set 6-2, and then killed him 6-1, 6-1. In the final 2 sets. So Rune found his rhythm in the last 2 sets, was able to coast to a nice, easy win in 3. Agut, though, can be dangerous on grass, especially. It is his best surface after all. Rune's worst surface is on grass, but he's looked pretty good so far in the event. I think Rune should win. Will it be easy? Probably not. I can see Agut winning a set, though. I think Rune, we know, can easily find spurts where he can dominate and really just blow Agut off the court. But there are other moments where the actual strokes get a little bit inconsistent. He'll punt away some points and some breaks, and Agut can do enough to hold with his consistency. I'll go with the over 2.5 sets here. I think Rune wins, but I don't see any value at this number. Rune is a guy who I still don't trust at all when it comes to a match-in, match-out basis. And Agut, with a day off under his belt, can maybe pull this off. Rune has won each of the 3 meetings in a very close battle, and I think that can't happen again. So I don't mind Rune in 3 for some extra value. Give me the over 2.5 sets at around plus 130 as my thoughts for that one. Moving on to the final match on the card. The biggest favorite on the card, you have Alcaraz against Rinderknech. Alcaraz is around minus 2,000. You have Rinderknech, who's around about 9-1, give or take. For the spread, you have minus 4.5 for Alcaraz, plus 4.5 for Rinderknech. The over-under is at 20.5 games. For the set spread, you have Alcaraz in straight set to minus 300. Rinderknech to win a set is plus 222. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 254. Faced off before on grass, actually. Faced off 2 years ago in this event. And you saw Alcaraz win not in an easy one. He actually won in a final set breaker. So they faced off a couple years ago on the courts here. Very close. Alcaraz won in a very competitive 3-setter. Faced off in the US Open 2021, Alcaraz won in 4. So yes, the actual stats and the matchups are dated, but the point is Rinderknech has actually given Alcaraz some problems in the past. Now Alcaraz is off a marathon against Munar, where he was down a break in the 3rd set. Came back and he won, beat Walton 6-4, 7-6. Rinderknech, though, has not been broken in the entire event. In fact, he has really just been coasting up to this point. He looks really good so far in the event. He lost to Moutet in qualifying. Since then, beat 2 Americans, beat Shelton and beat Opelka. Did not face a break point in the entire match for both of those rounds. Now, I think for the sake of the actual spot for Alcaraz, it's a really bad spot. Yes, I know he's much better than Rinderknech. And yes, I get that the draw, you could argue, is favorable for Alcaraz. However, playing 3.5 hours on grass and then facing a server that can be very dangerous is not exactly the matchup you want. Alcaraz's serve was vulnerable the entire match against Munar. Bunch of double faults, and some of them were costly. I think that Rinderknech can keep this close, actually. The fact is, Alcaraz is going to win. I'm not picking a massive upset here. But off a 3.5 hour marathon, post-French Open, and you're looking at no days off in between, it does feel like a spot where Rinderknech can maybe catch Alcaraz slipping, and maybe he can actually win a set. He has won a set in each of the first two meetings, including the matchup in this environment in London 2 years ago. So I don't mind the over in this one. I think that 20.5, makes sense. But I do think that Rinderknech is a good enough server who can shorten the points, make it interesting for Alcaraz, maybe even break once if Alcaraz's serve is going to be a bit spotty, like we saw in the match against Munar. Alcaraz will win, but it feels very disrespectful to Rinderknech, who's proven on the courts here, this exact event, he can push Alcaraz to the brink, as he did lose in a third set tiebreak. So I don't mind the value with the dog here on Rinderknech. I don't mind the games at 4.5. Feels pretty large of a spread for a guy that has not been broken in 2 straight matches, and for a guy who's off a 3.5-hour marathon against the clay specialist. Yes, Munar played out of his mind, played a great match in general. Might be the best match he's ever played, but still, definitely a actual surface advantage for Alcaraz. And it didn't feel that way the entire match. Munar was right there. He just choked to the finish line. But I think that minus 2,000 or so can result in some really, I'd say, lopsided lines for this one, which I think is a bit too much. Give me Rinderknech, plus the games. I don't mind the over. Maybe Alcaraz team total over. I think at least one of these sets is going to be close. I'll go with that as a main thought for this matchup. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the Friday matches. Time to move on into the lock and dog plays. For that, the reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Underdog Fantasy, because Underdog's going along for the May Finals. If they're extended bonus, hop in game 1. Longer the series goes, the bigger bonus gets. And a reminder, when you sign up, use code SGPN to get a special check and first time visit offer up to 1K in bonus cash. And fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because you've heard us talk about Rhythm before. That's dropped the game-changing feature called Power Trends, and detective patterns where Rhythm's models have consistently won, have a high ROI. And a reminder, Power Trends are updated every day. They're exclusive to Rhythm. No touts, no noise, just clean dead back picks. Download the app, check out Power Trends, start betting smarter, and also try it out for free for a week. But the 7-day free trial, go to sportsgambling.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview for the Friday matches. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, couple of choices here, but I am going to go with the Halle match between Zverev and Cobolli. I'll go with the over, 21.5 games here at minus 120. 4 of Zverev's last 5 grass matches have gone over this number. So despite winning a decent amount of those matches, it has not been the easiest for Zverev. He tends to find himself in at least a breaker. We saw him go to 3 sets against Sonego, and he was able to win in a final set breaker. The point is, though, you've seen Zverev look vulnerable at times. He's been winning, but I think Cobolli can keep it interesting for at least a set to get this over the pretty low total on the courts here in Halle. Each of Cobolli's last 2 matches did not end in straight sets. They went to actually final set breakers. But the point is, Cobolli has proven he can battle when needed, and I do think Zverev will be the better player for a decent portion of this matchup. But do I actually trust Zverev to dominate a match he should? Probably not. I think Cobolli is good enough and resourceful enough to do some damage. The forehand can be good. Zverev's first serve can maybe be shaky, and the second serve we know can be problematic for him. But the fact is, if he drops a set to Sonego on grass, I don't think Zverev is guaranteed to bury Cobolli in this matchup here. Think it might end in straight sets, but 21.5 for the court speeds in Halle, which have been insanely fast so far in the event. I do think Cobolli can do a decent job serving here. Might have a couple of stressful service games, but I do think Zverev's not guaranteed to hold every time in this matchup. We saw Sonego break him in the match on Thursday. Cobolli can make it interesting. I think it might be somewhat close for a set, maybe a breaker in there, but Zverev has just not been a great front runner so far on grass. He's been winning, not really covering spreads, and a lot of overs have gone there, with the exception of the Giron match, who had not played in a couple of weeks. So I'll go with the over here for the games. I think 21.5 is too low. Give me the over at minus 120 as my lock. For the dog, though, I'm going to go to London. I am going to go with Leheshka, straight sets in the matchup against Fernley at plus 135. I got to take it. I think it's a great price. I understand Fernley has the crowd behind him, but he hasn't really beaten anybody worth a damn so far in the event, and Leheshka has. Leheshka beat Diallo, who is fresh off a grass title. Yes, fatigue might have been an issue, but still won comfortably. de Minaur has been good on grass in the past. Yes, he's complained about the actual, I'd say, fatigue with the long ATP schedule, but the fact is, Leheshka got through both matches easily, did not face a break point, he coasted. I do think Leheshka's been in better form. Fernley beat Bolt, who's a challenger guy, and Moutet, who I think we all know is better on clay And yes, it went 3 sets. Mutek can be tricky against anybody because of the unique play style, but he got pretty lucky Fritz lost. I'll put it that way. So I do like the overall form that Lehecka's in comparison to Fernley, and I do think that it's a good price. But you're looking at Lehecka, who's won 4 of his first 5 grass matches this season, did lose to Shelton last week, but all 4 wins were in straight sets. When he wins, he coasts, and I see that happening here. Lehecka, though, has faced 0 break points in the event. Fernley, by comparison, has faced 12, and he's been broken 3 times. So with the massive serve advantage, I do think there's a pretty strong case to be made that Lehecka should dominate in this matchup. Give me Lehecka to get the job done in straight sets at plus 135 as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the show. Lock's going to be on Zverev and Kaboli over 21.5 games at minus 120. For the dog, I'll go with Lehecka in straight sets at plus 135. So wrap it up with the show. We're back once again for the semis in Halle and in London. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.